Welcome to part 3 of how to incubate eggs on a budget. If you haven't seen parts 1 or 2 yet, make sure you go check those out so that this video makes sense. Today is day 3 of the incubation period, and this is the first day where you can sometimes possibly start to see signs of life inside the egg when you candle it, so we're going to do that a little bit later on. But first, I wanted to show you guys something cool real quick, because I had something unusual happen, and I wanted to show you for educational purposes and just because it's kind of neat. So I was starting to take some eggs out of the nesting boxes, and you can see that one is obviously way smaller than all the other ones. Now, if you have new hens that have just started laying, it's normal to get undersized eggs the first couple times, but none of my hens are new layers. And it's one of my green eggs, which means that the culprit is either bluebell or snapdragon. So this can sometimes happen to any chicken. It's called a fairy egg. I've heard some people call it a fart egg. And there's a couple different reasons why this could happen. One of the main reasons is that there's some kind of interruption in the reproductive cycle and the eggshell starts to form before the yolk is inside of it. So these often don't have yolks in them, so we're going to crack it open and see if this one does or doesn't. There's so many factors that could cause this, and I'm wondering if maybe it was the stress from the extreme temperatures, because it's been so weird. It's been going from like warm to cold, wet to dry. Beautiful day, windy day. Like it's been really weird the past few weeks. So that's my guess, but there's really not any way to tell. Coquette's investigating. It's so windy, it takes your breath away. Okay, let's be quick. We're away from the chickens now, so that way if there is a yolk in it, they don't try to eat it, because I always talk about how you don't want your chickens to become egg eaters. So let's see. Oh wow, there was one in it. That's kind of cool. The shell was really hard too. I really had to bang it on there to get it to break. This is where I'm going to grow potatoes soon. So back to the subject of incubating eggs on a budget. I did think of this the other day that I didn't mention. But if you're someone that plans on raising chicks more often than just like on rare occasions, it's not a bad idea to get a rooster and get some chickens, some breeds that are really prone to going broody, like Orpingtons, for example, or Silkies. And then you can just breed and raise your own. If they go broody, that's kind of just something that they do naturally on their own. It's not something that you can predict. But it is helpful if you get breeds that are more prone to it so they can help you hatch the eggs. So that's one way to do it on a budget and be self-sustaining with it. But I know a lot of people are in the same boat as me, and that's that you can't have a rooster where you live. So this video is for all the homies out there that are in the same boat as me. So we're using the Little Giant Still Air Incubator. And even if you are allowed to have a rooster where you live, not everyone wants to, because they can be really loud and really mean. Now don't get me wrong, they are good for other things. Obviously they're good for chicks if you want to be breeding and raising chicks on a regular basis. And they are also really good for protecting your hens if you free range them. But if you don't have a rooster and you don't have hens that are prone to going broody, there's no shame in using an incubator. So let's go in and we'll candle the eggs and see if we can see any development. It's time to candle the eggs for the first time. I'm going to take them all out of here and then put them down on the towel and then put the lid back on so that way it retains heat so it's warm when I put them back in. This one I'm a little bit skeptical of because I found it in the past when I've hatched other eggs that any egg that has a weak calcium spot on its shell, which this one has a few where it's discolored there, they don't usually tend to hatch or do well. But we'll see if there's anything in this one when we candle it. It's really easy to candle them. All you need is a flashlight and a dark room. So here's the one that I'm a little bit unsure about. You can see like all those little holes in it where the calcium is weaker. It's still really early, so don't get rid of ones like this just yet, but so far this one does not look like it has anything in it. Now let's try this one. Here's the third one we're trying. I don't think this one's fertile. I don't see any veins or anything, and even the air cell isn't really defined. However, it is only day 3, so it's very possible that there is a check in here, and it's still just too early to tell, so we're definitely going to hold on to this one for now. It's very important not to jump to any conclusions this early on. This one you can see almost all the way through, so I feel like this one's probably infertile too. Honestly, so far none of these really look promising, but it is only day 3 like I keep saying, so this doesn't really mean anything. Because in just a couple days from now, these could look very different. Alright, here's the last one. So far, you can't really see anything happening in any of them, so we're going to put them back in the incubator and we're going to check back in a couple days. It's now day 5, so we're going to try candling the eggs again and see what we can find. This one's really hard to tell. You can't really see it on the camera, but I see like a slight little something right there. But I'm not entirely sure on this one, so obviously we're going to put it back in the incubator and give it another day or 2. So this one I see, it looks like 2 dots. There's one there and one there. You can kind of see it on the camera. And I can't tell if that's the veins starting or if it's a dud or a dead one. It's really hard to tell when it's all porous like that. Okay, this one is definitely fertile and alive. Look at that. That's exciting. You can see the veins coming up. Obviously, it's not picking it up as well on the camera as it does in real life, but I can completely see that there's something alive in there. There's veins and there's a little, you can see the little tiny embryo. There, you can see it slightly better here. Let's try another one. I don't see any veins on this one. No obvious signs of life. I do see like a line right here, and that's typically not a good sign. But since it is still so early in the incubation process, I'm not going to toss it out quite yet. So we'll check back with this one. Same thing with this one. I see something right there, but I don't see any obvious veins yet either. But this egg's a little bit darker than the others, so it's a little bit harder to see through. This one, I don't really see too much happening. I can't tell if this one's infertile or a dud, or who knows, maybe even there's something in this one. This is one of the ones that had like, when I candled it earlier, it looked like there was like an air bubble or something in here, which did not seem very good or promising to me, but we'll see what happens. Like I keep saying, it's very early on, so we don't need to jump to conclusions quite yet. But in the next couple days, we'll be able to have a better understanding of if an egg is good or bad. And once we know for sure if one's bad, you would want to remove that because you don't want to risk it exploding or infecting or hurting any of the other eggs. But I'll show you that when the time comes. And I'm sure it will, because anytime you incubate eggs, there's always going to be some that don't make it. That's unfortunately just the nature of the game, especially when you get them shipped. Again, all these like spots or like where the calcium's weaker. I've never had great luck with eggs like that, so that is kind of concerning. I mean, that could just be a coincidence in my experience. Hopefully it's nothing, but we'll see what happens. Oh, and when you're candling your eggs, you don't need to rush or panic. That's a good way to accidentally break them. Just take your time when you're looking, because mother hens will get off of their nest occasionally throughout the day to eat or drink or walk around, so it's normal for the eggs to be left without a heat source periodically. You don't want them to go for a long period of time, obviously, but occasionally or just for a few minutes, it's not going to hurt anything because it would happen naturally too if they were with the hen. So this one does not look good to me. You can see, I mean, I don't know how well it's showing up on the camera, but it's obvious in real life. Right up here to down here is where the air cell is. So like it's not where it should be. Typically the air cell's at the very bottom of the egg, but this one is like kind of on the side. And I did notice that when I first got this egg. I don't know if it happened from shipping or if it was just a dud or some kind of flaw when it was laid. But the air cell's not where it normally is. It's right here. And then I see a line right there. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see on the camera. So what I think happens is development probably started in this one, but then because of the deformity or whatever happened to this one with the air cell being out of place, it just stopped growing. I don't really see anything happening in this one at all. This one's probably an infertile one, but we'll give it another day or two. Same with this one. I don't see anything at all, and this was another one that had like a air bubble or like a misplaced air cell in here. I saw something besides just the yolk floating around. Definitely not an embryo because it wouldn't be this big this early on and you can see through it. So unfortunately, let's look, we have another dud. Same exact thing with this one. So with hatching eggs, basically it's buy at your own risk because there's so many factors that could cause an egg not to develop properly and cause it not to hatch. Because when the hatchery sells it, whatever happens to the eggs in shipping, and then once they get to your house, is out of their control. They can't control if the shipping facility handles them improperly or if they freeze or have too many temperature fluctuations. The hatchery has no control if your incubator is not working properly, which in my case, this one obviously is. But these hatcheries deal with so many people and there's so many factors, so most of them have a buy at your own risk policy on the eggs and they don't do refunds. However, since it looks like most of these were infertile to begin with, I could reach out. It never hurts to ask and see if they could offer a refund or some replacements. If not, it's not a big deal because I agreed to the risk. I knew the risk when I signed up for this. But it's worth a try, so I might reach out and see what they can say. Alright, we're going to let this get warmed back up. It always drops a little bit when you take the lid off, which is obviously normal, so don't worry about that. Just keep an eye on it afterwards. And now we'll check back in a couple days. It's now day 6, and we're going to candle the eggs again. We'll start with this one, the one that looked good the other night. It still looks good. Ah, there we go. I'm trying to get it to show up on camera for you. You can see that little dot in the middle, and I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but there's like a darker spot on that, which I think is the eye. You can kind of see it moving a little bit too, and there's lots of veins coming out from around it. Let's try this one again. This one still looks like there's nothing in it. This one, I can definitely see some veins in this one, so that's a good sign. The only thing that's concerning about this one is this is one of the ones that look like it had an air bubble in it, so I'm not sure if this one's going to go full term, but we'll see what happens. And then this one looks like there's nothing in it. Same with this one. And then this is the one that the other night I was saying I thought that the air cell was in the wrong spot. It still definitely looks like that. It's like up on the side instead of down here where it should be. And it looks like there's a blood ring in this one. That little dark stripe right there looks like the blood ring. I don't really see any veins. It's just that one stripe. So that's not really a good sign. This one also looks empty. Same with this one. This one is dark up here, light down here, and light up here. I don't see any veins though, and I don't see any movement. Here's another one that looks empty or infertile. Here's another one with no signs of life. And then here's the one that the other night I was saying the shell was kind of hard to see through. I do see something right there, which could be the embryo. It's kind of hard to tell on this one because of all like the tiny hole looking things, if there are any veins. But it looks like there might be some through here. I honestly can't tell if this one is a live one or one that has a dead baby in it. So we're going to hold on to this one for another couple days and then we'll check back and see for sure. So these are going to go back into the incubator, and the next day or two we'll be able to have a very clear picture if the eggs are good or bad. And then we'll be able to start taking the bad ones out of the incubator and just leaving room for the couple good ones. So far this is pretty disappointing, but it's not shocking. Because anytime you get hatching eggs, there's always a risk that you're going to get some infertile ones or some duds, especially when they get shipped. And in this case, they did get delayed a little bit in shipping, which was not good. I did reach out to the hatchery and I explained that most of the eggs were infertile. And unfortunately, they weren't able to or willing to do anything about that, but at least I tried. So that's just part of the risk. If you are able to find someone with breeds you're interested in that's local and you could pick them up, I highly recommend that because it's just a little bit of a safer way to go about it. All right, they're all in the incubator again, and we will check back in a couple days. It's now day 8, so let's see how they look. This one appears to have a live embryo in it. The one concern, and I think I did mention this in one of my earlier videos on this, but that the one concerning thing about this one is that you can see the air cell which is right here. You'll see it again once I cover it up. See how you can see through it right there? The air cell is larger than it should be, and it's like up on the side instead of down at the bottom. So that's a little bit worrisome, but hopefully it'll be okay. There's nothing we can do about that except just wait and see what happens. There could be a number of reasons why that happened. It could have been something genetic. It could have been from the transportation. It could have been from the weather fluctuations. Like, who knows? There's just so many different things that could have caused it, but hopefully it'll go ahead and make it full term. We'll see what happens. Here's the other one that has been looking good this whole time. Honestly, I'm not so sure if it's still looking good. It's still alive, at least for now, because I see veins and I see the embryo. But the air cell is looking a little funky with this one too. See? And the veins aren't looking as connected as they did the other night. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Here's one of the ones that this whole time I didn't think was really going to have anything happen with it. You can see there's no change with the air cell, which a normal one would be down here, and it would slightly expand and grow. Here's another one with nothing really happening in it. It still has that dark spot that it's had literally this whole time. No change. Another one that's had nothing in it this whole time. You can see the embryo in this one, like right there, that dark spot, and the really dark spot I would say is probably the eye. However, I don't think it's alive, because I don't really see a whole lot of veins. Now, mind you, this was the egg that this whole time I've said it was kind of hard to see through. But I don't really see any veins, and it kind of just seems to, like, drift around and not move at all. If you see an embryo and absolutely no movement, that's not a good sign. Now, they're not going to be moving all the time, but see, it just kind of, like, sloshes around. Another empty one. Another empty one. I see veins in this one, so this one looks like it's going to be good. And that little dark spot around here is the embryo. It keeps moving out of the shot. There we go. You can kind of see it. And here's a blood ring. So there's no veins in here, no embryo, just a stripe right there. So this is one of the ones that I thought died very early on, but we left it in there just to see, just in case. Because if you're not entirely sure, it's better to be safe than sorry, but I just see the blood stripe. This one does not look good. I'm going to say this is a dud. Because if it was alive and developing, you would see veins, you'd see more movement, you'd see more growth by now. But this one has just looked the same for the past few days. So far, it looks like this is going to be a pretty disappointing hatch. But it's not over yet, so we'll see what happens. And this is the one the other night where you see that blob. I thought it didn't look good, and it was the one that had like the partial crack and like some of the damage to the shell. So the embryo started to develop in this one, but then I guess because of the imperfections on the shell, it wasn't able to go full term. So we're gonna remove this one. But at least this one looks good. At this rate, we might only have one good egg. But the good news is if this one hatches and makes it, the chick won't be alone, because I do have some other chicks that are on order that should arrive around the same time that this one is due to hatch. And don't forget to remove and get rid of any eggs that are empty or dead, because you don't want the dead ones to continue to incubate because they have the potential to explode, and then that would harm the other eggs that are still in the incubator, and it would just be a horrible mess to have to clean up. If for some reason Snapdragon is just standing in the hail. There she goes. Look at the pool cover. So the weather is really, really weird today. I mean, it's springtime, so that happens. You can probably hear the sirens in the distance. And we're under a severe thunderstorm warning and a severe wind advisory until like 2 in the morning. Right now it's not too bad. There's a small break in the weather. So I'm gonna collect the eggs before the wind comes back and the storm is starting to thunder again. But I got a bunch of greens planted today. I started some corn, so that's good. I feel accomplished with that. And I'm just hoping and praying that the power doesn't go out because I have that one sole surviving egg in there incubating. But luckily, if the power does go out, I can give it to Honeysuckle here. She's still broody. She'll take care of it for me. But I still hope that doesn't happen because I'd hate to have to come out here in the middle of the storm to give her an egg. But look how cute this is. If you give her an egg, she'll take it. So hopefully everything goes well with these storms coming. Hopefully we don't lose power, but if we do, at least I have backup. It's now day 18, and you can see that the chick has filled out most of the egg, so it's dark now and kind of hard to see through. Where it's clear right here is the air cell, and that's expanding just like it should be as it gets closer to hatching. On day 18, we're going to stop turning it, and the incubator will go on to lockdown, and it'll get into position to hatch on the 21st day. The air cell is slightly on the side with this egg, so hopefully it all goes well. Not too much longer now.